Sarah wiped the metallic dust from her goggles and squinted through the hazy air of the scrapyard. The massive sorting facility stretched endlessly before her, filled with mountains of discarded machinery from 1,000 worlds. Her muscles ached from 12 hours of separating valuable components from worthless scrap, but she couldn't stop, not with the Drachnid overseers watching. Sector 7 needs clearing before nightfall, Maya called from atop a nearby pile, her voice muffled by her filtration mask. Like Sarah, she wore the standard gray jumpsuit of the mining facility's workers, now torn and stained from months of hard labor. The two 16-year-olds hadn't asked for this life. They'd been engineering students on Earth's outer colonies when the Drachnid ships appeared 6 months ago, their reptilian crews claiming human technical expertise was needed for specialized salvage operations. That had been a lie. They were slaves, plain and simple. Sarah climbed carefully toward her friend, testing each handhold in the unstable heap of debris. "Found anything good?" she asked, reaching Maya's position. They were supposed to be searching for specific alloys and power cells, but they'd learned to spot other valuable items they could trade for extra food rations. Maya shook her head, then froze. "Wait. Look at this." She brushed away a layer of rust-colored dust, revealing a panel marked with faded human writing. "This is ours. Earth-made." Sarah's heart quickened. Human technology was rare in the facility. The Drachnids usually processed it separately. Together, they began clearing more debris, revealing sleek armored plating beneath decades of corrosion. A thunderous rumble interrupted their work. The ground shifted, and the entire pile began to collapse. Sarah grabbed Maya's arm and pulled her back, but it was too late. The scrap mountain was falling, taking them with it. They tumbled down the slope of shifting metal, desperately trying to avoid being crushed. Sarah caught glimpses of sky and ground spinning around her until something solid stopped her fall, hard. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she was alive. "Maya," she called out, panic rising in her throat. "Over here." Maya's voice came from nearby. "Sarah, you need to see this." Sarah stood shakily and turned around. Her jaw dropped. The scrap slide had revealed something massive. A giant mechanical form half buried in the debris. It was humanoid in shape, easily 50 feet tall, with armor plating that bore the faded insignia of the Earth Defense Force. "Is that what I think it is?" Maya whispered. Sarah nodded slowly. A Titan. One of the original Mark II combat frames from the Mars Rebellion. Her father had helped design them, before the Drachnids came. She'd grown up studying the schematics, dreaming of following in his footsteps. Maya approached the fallen giant, running her hand along its scared armor. "Think it still works?" "After all these years?" "Doubtful." Sarah examined the nearest access panel. "But these were built to last. If the core systems are intact." A harsh voice cut through their wonder. "Humans, return to your assigned sectors immediately." Two Drachnid overseers were approaching, their scaled faces twisted in anger. Sarah and Maya quickly scrambled away from the Titan, heads bowed submissively. "The area is unstable," Sarah said quickly. "We were just..." Silence. The larger overseer raised his shock prod threateningly. "Return to work or face reconditioning." As they were marched back to their designated sorting area, Sarah caught Maya's eye. A silent understanding passed between them. They'd found something important, perhaps the most important discovery of their lives. They just needed time to figure out how to use it. That night in their cramped barracks, Sarah couldn't sleep. Her mind kept returning to the Titan. She'd recognized the model. The EDF MiG-3 Paladin class. It had been Earth's most advanced combat system before production stopped during the peace accords. If they could restore power to even some of its systems. Maya's bunk creaked as she leaned down from the upper level. "You're thinking about it too, aren't you?" Sarah nodded. "The auxiliary power system is self-contained. If the reactor's still intact, we might be able to power up the diagnostic systems without anyone noticing. And if we get caught?" Sarah thought of the reconditioning chamber, where disobedient workers were taken. Some never returned. Then we'll wish we hadn't. Maya was quiet for a moment. My brother died fighting the Drachnids when they came for our colony. If there's even a chance we could use that Titan. We'll need to be careful, Sarah said. Start small. Learn its systems. Make them think we're still just sorting scrap. The morning shift starts in 5 hours. Maya reminded her. We should sleep. But as Sarah closed her eyes, her mind was already racing through the Titan's schematics, planning their first steps. Tomorrow would bring another day of back-breaking labor, but now they had something they'd lost months ago. They had hope. The next week passed in a careful dance of deception. Sarah and Maya maintained their usual sorting routine, but every spare moment was devoted to the Titan. They worked in shifts, one keeping watch while the other examined the massive machine, memorizing its systems and planning their next moves. The main reactor's cold, Sarah whispered one evening, crouched inside the Titan's maintenance shaft. She'd managed to access the diagnostic panel, its ancient display flickering weakly under emergency power. But the auxiliary systems are in better shape than I hoped. Maya's voice came from above, tense with worry. Hurry. Patrol in 3 minutes. Sarah quickly replaced the access panel and scrambled out. They'd learned the patrol schedules by heart, timing their work down to the second. One mistake would mean discovery and punishment. Later that night, Sarah sketched diagrams on the floor of their barracks using dust and debris, teaching Maya what she'd learned about the Titan systems. The Mark III had 3 independent power cores, she explained. The main reactor's dead, but if we can restore the backup systems, how much power would that give us? Maybe 15% of full capacity, enough for basic mobility and some defensive systems. Maya's eyes gleamed in the dim light. Enough to fight. Sarah hesitated. Maybe, but we need parts first, specific ones. The next day brought an opportunity. The Drachnids were processing a new shipment of salvage, including military-grade power cells. As they sorted through the heap, Maya managed to pocket 2 small fusion capacitors, critical components they'd need for the Titan's auxiliary power system. But their luck couldn't last forever. You there, human? The overseer's voice cracked like a whip. Maya froze, the stolen components hidden in her jumpsuit. Sarah's heart stopped as the massive Drachnid approached their workstation. This sector's quota is behind schedule. We'll work faster, Sarah promised quickly, stepping forward to draw attention away from Maya. The overseer's vertical pupils narrowed. See that you do, or perhaps you need motivation. He raised his shock prod, electricity crackling between its prongs. No, sir, Sarah said, fighting to keep her voice steady. We understand. That evening, they worked well past sunset to meet the quota, their bodies aching with exhaustion. But as soon as the night shift began, they were back at the Titan, installing the stolen components. Power levels rising, Sarah reported, watching the auxiliary display. 5%, 8%. A sudden alarm blared through the scrapyard. Maya nearly dropped her tools. What is that? Intruder alert, Sarah realized with horror. Someone's detected the power spike. They quickly shut down the systems and sealed the access panels, but they could already hear the heavy footsteps of Drachnid guards approaching. There was no time to reach their assigned sectors. Under here, Maya hissed, pulling Sarah beneath a fallen sheet of armor plating. They huddled in the darkness, barely breathing, as searchlights swept the area. Energy signature detected in this sector, a harsh voice announced. Find the source. Sarah closed her eyes, silently reciting the Titan's startup sequence. If they were discovered, they might only get one chance to power up the machine. They'd have to be ready. The search lasted hours. Finally, the Drachnids concluded that their instruments had malfunctioned, but they doubled the patrols in the area. As Sarah and Maya crept back to their barracks just before dawn, they knew their task had become much more difficult. We need a new plan, Maya whispered as they collapsed onto their bunks. "We can't keep sneaking around like this." Sarah stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. What if we didn't have to? An idea was forming, dangerous, but possible. What if we could work on the Titan in plain sight? Maya propped herself up on one elbow. "What do you mean?" "The Drachnids want us to sort valuable components, right? What if we convince them there's something important inside the Titan? Something worth salvaging? They'd watch us the whole time." "Yes." Sarah smiled grimly. "But they don't know enough about human technology to understand what we're really doing. We could restore the systems piece by piece, right under their noses." Maya was quiet for a long moment. "It's risky. Everything about this is risky, but it's our best chance." The overseer's tongue flicked out, tasting the air, a sign of interest. "Show me." As they led him to the Titan, Sarah silently prayed she was right about the Drachnid's ignorance of human technology. Everything depended on what happened next. The massive alien examined the fallen machine with cold calculation. Estimated salvage value. The reactor core alone would be worth months of standard quotas, Sarah said carefully. But extraction will take time. The systems are complex. The overseer considered this. "You have 10 days, he finally declared. "After that, we demolish it for scrap." Sarah bowed deeply to hide her expression. 10 days to restore a war machine that had lain dormant for decades. It seemed impossible. But as she caught Maya's eye, she saw the same determination she felt. They had their chance. Now they just had to make it count. The first test came at dawn. Under the watchful eyes of the Drachnid overseers, Sarah and Maya began their salvage operation on the Titan. Every movement had to look like they were dismantling the machine, when in reality they were bringing it back to life. "Power coupling secure," Maya muttered, her hands moving carefully inside an open panel. She was actually reconnecting the Titan's neural interface system, but to the overseers, it looked like she was harvesting valuable components. Sarah worked on the cockpit systems, carefully clearing decades of corrosion from the control interfaces. "Running diagnostic sequence alpha," she whispered, keeping her back to the guards. The ancient displays flickered dimly, their glow hidden by her body. Then something unexpected happened. Sarah's heart nearly stopped. The Titan's artificial intelligence was still active. She quickly typed a response. "Maintenance crew. Running salvage diagnostic. NEJ8I-E. DDT-KTD. Unauthorized access. Hostile environment. QUER. Require assistance." Maya noticed Sarah's tension. "What's wrong?" "It's alive," Sarah breathed. "The AI, it knows we're in trouble." A harsh voice interrupted their discovery. "Progress report." The sector overseer approached, his scaled face twisted in suspicion. Sarah quickly dimmed the displays. "Preliminary component extraction. Sir, the reactor housing is proving difficult to access." The overseer's tongue flicked out, tasting the air for deception. "Work faster. 8 days remain." That night, in the relative privacy of their barracks, Sarah and Maya planned their next moves. "If the AI is functional, it can help us," Sarah explained. "It knows all the systems, all the shortcuts we'd never find on our own." "But can we trust it?" Maya asked. "After all these years, it might be corrupted." "We don't have a choice. We need its help." The next few days fell into a dangerous rhythm. By day, they pretended to salvage the Titan while actually repairing it, communicating with the AI through brief text exchanges. By night, they planned and worried. The AI, which called itself Aegis, proved invaluable. It guided them through the labyrinth of its systems, helping them prioritize critical repairs and bypass damaged components. But it also brought troubling news. "They're getting suspicious," Sarah told Maya as they worked. "We need to move faster." A new complication arose on the 6th day. A massive Drachnid ship descended from orbit, landing at the facility's main dock. Through whispered conversations with other workers, they learned it was a military vessel, here to collect high-value salvage. That evening, they spotted several high-ranking Drachnid officers examining the Titan from a distance, gesturing at its weapon systems. Sarah's blood ran cold. They weren't just getting suspicious, they were starting to understand what they had. "We're running out of time," Maya said as they huddled in their bunks that night. "If those officers realize what we're doing." Sarah nodded grimly. "Aegis says we're at 47% power now. The main mobility systems are online, and we have limited defensive capabilities. Is it enough? It'll have to be. We move tomorrow." But the Drachnids moved first. Shortly after midnight, the barracks door crashed open. Armed guards stormed in, shock prods crackling with energy. The human engineers seized them. Sarah and Maya were dragged from their bunks. Other workers watched in terrified silence as they were marched toward the interrogation center, a place few returned from. The senior officer, his scales gleaming in the harsh lights, circled them slowly. "Our technicians have examined your salvage project," he said, his voice dripping with menace. "Would you like to explain why the machine's power systems are active?" Sarah's mind raced. They needed just a few more hours of work on the Titan. If they could stall. "The reactor required testing before extraction," she said. "Standard salvage procedure 4. The shock prod struck her mid-sentence, sending her crashing to the floor in agony. Maya screamed and tried to reach her, but was held back by the guards. "Take them to maximum security," the officer ordered. "Tomorrow, they will watch as we destroy their precious machine. Then we will discuss the true meaning of punishment." As they were dragged away, Sarah caught Maya's eye. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. They were out of time. They had to move now, ready or not. The only question was, how could they reach the Titan while chained in a maximum security cell? The answer came from an unexpected source. As they were shoved into their cell, Sarah's hidden communicator, salvaged from the Titan's systems, vibrated against her skin. The ground began to shake. The facility's alarms screamed to life as the first tremors hit. Sarah and Maya pressed themselves against the cell wall as the ground continued to shake. Outside, they could hear guards shouting in confusion. The message flashed on Sarah's hidden communicator moments before the first explosion rocked the compound. The cell's reinforced walls groaned under the impact. "It's moving on its own," Maya whispered in awe. "How is that possible?" Sarah remembered her father's stories about the Mark II prototypes. "The AI has limited autonomous capabilities. We did enough repairs for basic functions." Another explosion, closer this time. The cell's power flickered, and the electronic locks disengaged. Down the corridor, they could hear the sounds of chaos as guards rushed to respond to the threat. "Now." Sarah pushed the door open, and they ran. The facility was in pandemonium. Emergency lights flashed, alarms blared, and panicked voices echoed through the corridors. Through the windows, they could see searchlights sweeping across the scrapyard. They rounded a corner and froze. Through the massive loading bay windows, they saw it. The Titan was standing. Decades of rust and debris fell from its armor as it moved, its massive form illuminated by the facility's spotlights. Even at partial power, it was an awesome sight. "Halt!" A squad of guards appeared behind them, weapons raised. Sarah and Maya dove behind a storage container as energy bolts sizzled past. The Titan's head turned toward the sound of weapons fire. Its eyes, now glowing with restored power, focused on the threat to its human operators. "Hostile forces, DETCTD. Engaging defensive PROTOCOS." The loading bay wall exploded inward as the Titan's massive hand punched through. Debris scattered the guards, giving Sarah and Maya their chance. They sprinted toward the breach. "The primary access hatch," Sarah shouted over the chaos. "We need to get to the cockpit." Maya pointed to the Titan's extended arm. "Use it as a bridge." They climbed onto the massive mechanical limb just as more guards arrived. Energy weapons fire sparked off the Titan's armor as they scrambled toward the main body. The machine adjusted its position, shielding them from the barrage. Finally, they reached the cockpit access hatch. It opened automatically as they approached. The cockpit was a maze of displays and controls, but Sarah's years of studying Titan schematics kicked in. She dropped into the pilot's seat while Maya took the system station. "Reactor status?" Sarah asked, hands flying over the startup sequence. "Holding at 60%, Maya reported. "Weapons are minimal, but mobility systems are responding." Outside, they could see Drachnid forces mobilizing. Armed troops were taking up positions, and heavy weapons were being wheeled into place. The military ship they'd seen earlier was powering up its engines. "Multiple targeting locks detected," Maya warned. Sarah grabbed the control yokes. "Hold on." The Titan moved with surprising grace for its size, diving behind a mountain of scrap moments before energy beams carved through the space they'd occupied. The impact shook the entire facility. With to hate of the did see. "Repairs required for combat operations." "We can't leave," Maya said firmly. "Not while there are other humans imprisoned here." This might be their only chance, too. Sarah nodded. "Aegis, can you access the facility systems? Find us a path to the detention blocks." A massive explosion rocked the Titan as one of the Drachnid heavy weapons found its mark. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit displays. "Armor integrity dropping," Maya reported. "We can't take many hits like that." Sarah gritted her teeth. "We don't need to fight them all. We just need to hold them off long enough to free the others." The facility's layout appeared on their main display, with the detention blocks highlighted. But reaching them wouldn't be easy. Dozens of armed Drachnids stood in their way, and the military ship was moving to cut off their escape route. Sarah looked at Maya. They both knew what was at stake. If they failed, there would be no second chance, for them or for any of the other prisoners. Maya's hand found Sarah's shoulder. "We started this together." Sarah nodded and wrapped her hands around the controls. The Titan's massive form straightened to its full height, armor plates shifting into combat configuration. "Aegis," Sarah commanded, "initiate combat protocols. Let's show them why Titans were feared across the galaxy." The machine's response rumbled through the cockpit like thunder. The night erupted into chaos as humanity's ancient guardian prepared to wage war once more. The Titan's first step shook the earth. Its second crushed a Drachnid weapons emplacement. By the third, the air was filled with energy weapon fire as every guard in the facility opened up on the massive war machine. "Shields at 43%. Maya called out, her fingers dancing across the system's console, rerouting power from non-essential systems. Sarah guided the Titan through the facility's maze of buildings and scrap mountains, using them as cover. Above them, the Drachnid warship's engines roared as it maneuvered for a firing solution. "They're calling in orbital strikes," Sarah realized. "Aegis, how long until they can fire?" The Titan's massive fist smashed through the outer wall of the detention complex. Alarms blared as emergency force fields activated, but they were designed to keep prisoners in, not war machines out. The barriers shattered like glass. Broadcasting on all frequencies, Maya announced, activating the Titan's external speakers. "To all human prisoners, the facility's security is compromised. If you can reach the main courtyard, we'll protect you. Run. Run now." They could see movement on their sensors as dots representing human life signs began to move through the complex. But the Drachnids weren't going to make it easy. "Heavy units incoming," Sarah warned as massive, armored shapes emerged from the facility's military hangar. Combat walkers. The first Drachnid walker opened fire, its energy cannons leaving molten trails in the air. Sarah jerked the controls, and the Titan rolled behind a storage building. The structure disintegrated under the barrage, but it bought them precious seconds. 2 minutes until orbital strike capability, Maya reported. Sarah, we need options. Sarah's mind raced through everything she knew about Titan combat systems. Aegis, what about the experimental systems? The ones in the project files. The Titan's reactor surged as dormant systems activated. Power coursed through previously dark circuits as prototype weapons came online. The cockpit displays shifted, showing new capabilities neither girl had known existed. Multiple human life signs approaching our position, Maya reported. They're making a break for it. Through the Titan's visual sensors, they could see dozens of prisoners running toward them, with Drachnid guards in pursuit. The combat walkers were moving to cut them off. Not happening. Sarah growled. She triggered the newly activated systems. The Titan's hands moved in a complex pattern as gravitational forces bent to its will. Debris from the destroyed buildings rose into the air, forming a barrier between the escaping prisoners and their pursuers. Another gesture sent the makeshift projectiles hurtling toward the Drachnid walkers. Orbital weapons powering up, Maya warned. Get those people inside. Sarah commanded. The Titan knelt, its chest plates sliding apart to reveal an emergency compartment designed for evacuating civilians. As the freed prisoners scrambled inside, Sarah prepared for their final move. ALERT, orbital strike imminent. Power core, critical LEVLs. IDPLEMENTING deficiency porotosios. The sky lit up as energy beams lanced down from orbit, but they never reached their target. The Titan's quantum shields flared to life, bending space itself to deflect the assault. The redirected energy carved molten trenches through the facility's outer walls. Now's our chance. Sarah pushed the Titan to its feet. Maya, give me everything we've got. The ancient war machine charged forward, its reinforced armor shrugging off continuous fire from the remaining Drachnid forces. They crashed through the perimeter fence, each step carrying them closer to freedom. The sky lit up as energy beams lanced down from orbit, but they never reached their target. The Titan's quantum shields flared to life, bending space itself to deflect the assault. The redirected energy carved molten trenches through the facility's outer walls. Now's our chance. Sarah pushed the Titan to its feet. Maya, give me everything we've got. The ancient war machine charged forward, its reinforced armor shrugging off continuous fire from the remaining Drachnid forces. They crashed through the perimeter fence, each step carrying them closer to freedom. There, Maya pointed to a massive ravine ahead. The old mining tunnels. They lead to the wilderness sectors. Sarah aimed for the opening just as the Drachnid warship appeared overhead, its main cannon glowing with gathered energy. We're not going to make it, Maya whispered. Yes, we are. Sarah's hands tightened on the controls. Aegis, initiate reactor overload. On my mark, channel everything into the gravity systems. The warship fired. Time seemed to slow. Now, the Titan's reactor went critical. Gravity itself warped around them, as every scrap of power fed into one final manipulation. The warship's beam struck empty air as the Titan and its precious cargo of freed prisoners vanished, only to reappear 2 kilometers away, deep in the mining tunnel. Then everything went dark. The mighty machine crashed to its knees, systems shutting down one by one. But it had done its job. They were safe. As Sarah and Maya helped the other prisoners out of the emergency compartment, they could hear the Drachnid forces searching in the wrong direction, far above them. They'd made it. What now? Maya asked, looking at their fallen savior. Sarah placed her hand on the Titan's cool metal surface. Now we find others like us. There must be more prisoners out there, more facilities. And now we know how to fight back. Maya finished. Inside the darkened cockpit, a single light still blinked, barely visible. A message scrolled across a backup display. The war for Earth's freedom was just beginning. And this time, humanity had awakened its ancient guardians. The Drachnids would soon learn why Titans were meant to be feared. The end.